Respawn Entertainment have recently launched Season 8 of Apex Legends, ushering in a brand new hero, a new weapon, and a return to a revamped Kings Canyon. Here at KovaaKs, we have also launched a new patch, and something to keep an eye out for are our new featured playlists. The team has curated two special playlists designed for our Apex Legends players. There's one for clicking and one for tracking. We'll also have the full patch notes linked in the description. Dominating lobbies in Apex Legends requires more than simply having good game sense and strategy. Incredible aim allows you to exploit any scenario to your advantage, no matter how dire things may look. How many times do you hear yourself or your teammates say, "Oh, they're 1 HP or they're so low"? Consider how many more fights and games you could win if you and your squad consistently hit these crucial shots. While we'll never see 100% accuracy all of the time, any increase can have a positive cascading effect on your gameplay. Aim training for Apex Legends is particularly useful as it belongs to the Battle Royale genre. These games tend to have significant downtime between fights and lobbies, and there is so much extra stimuli to pay attention to during fights that improvements to aiming in particular are painfully slow. Aim training in KovaaKs allows players to greatly accelerate their improvements by practicing in a hyper-focused environment without all the downtime and the distractions. Each of our playlists includes 8 scenarios, chosen and in many cases modified to suit the aiming requirements of Apex Legends. By default, each scenario is run 3 times for a total duration of around 25 minutes. Something quite useful you may notice is the inclusion of humanoid targets in certain scenarios. A vital component of accurate and consistent aim is the ability to read movement. The humanoids have detailed animations to provide visual cues on how they are moving around the environment, much like you would see in game. With a brand new season of Apex Legends beginning, we thought it would be a good time to share some of the top aiming tips to help you dominate your games, earn your badges, and climb the ranks. And if you are working on the damage badges at the moment, now is an excellent time to grind them out. They have just added a damage counter to keep track of your progress in-game, and the new 30-30 repeater is an extremely ammo-efficient weapon you can use to poke down teams from afar. Alright, so our first aiming tip is to focus on your target. This may sound obvious, but there's a big difference between looking at a target and focusing on a target. Take a ceiling fan for example. You can look at it, but the blades are just a blur. But if you really try, you can focus on a single blade spinning around. Focusing on a target rather than autopiloting and simply looking at them can take your aim to a whole new level. You are able to absorb more information about their position, the speed they're moving, the direction they're going, and all of this makes them feel like they are moving so much slower than usual. Tracking becomes far smoother, as the movement doesn't seem very fast and unpredictable or erratic, and now your flicks are dialed in and economical. If your aim ever feels off, or perhaps it degrades later into a long session, try to remember this tip and see what it can do for you. Our second tip is to read movement. We touched on the importance of this earlier, but it can't be overstated just how important this skill is. The weapons in Apex Legends, excluding the charge rifle, all fire projectiles with varying velocities and bullet drop. Combined with the greatly varied engagement distances and mobility options like zip lines and octane jump pads, reading the movement of your opponents becomes vital to appropriately compensating your aim. Reading movement is all about knowing where your enemy is right now and where they want to go. Having a good read on their strafing can make aiming at an 80 strafing target feel more predictable, rather than it being this reactive mess of over-aiming and constantly readjusting. Knowing where an enemy player wants to be is also very important. If you catch someone out of position, they're probably going to be scrambling to the closest cover as quickly as possible. Knowing this can set you up for some easy tracking, or it can let you place your crosshair where they have to go for a well-timed shot. In close range fights, most weapons can be used as if they were hit scan, where you don't need to lead your shots, but as the engagement distances increase, the aiming style also changes. Leading your shots can be quite tricky, but getting the damage out at a distance doesn't need to feel so random and lucky. With every shot you fire, it is important to acknowledge where that bullet goes. If it lands short, your next shot should account for that and aim further ahead, and if your bullet hits, that also needs to be acknowledged and replicated in your following shots. Using this technique makes you extremely deadly the longer an engagement lasts, as you can hone in on exactly where you should be aiming to land your shots. It's a fairly well-known tip, but it's worth mentioning that the sniper scopes have extremely useful features built in. You can see here that it tells you the exact distance between you and where your crosshair is pointing, and the numbers on your crosshair represent hundreds of meters. This lets you aim at an enemy, or perhaps the terrain near them, and this determines the distance you need to compensate with the relevant mark on your crosshair to land the perfect shot. This can be very useful when you and your enemy are both peeking from cover, as you can fire shots at head height no matter the distance. And finally, we'll touch on mouse sensitivity and how to make the most of it. Your mouse sensitivity is the most accessible variable you can change to instantly change your aiming performance. If you were to play Apex Legends on the default sensitivity of 5 and use a mouse DPI of 3200, you would be playing on 2.6 centimeters per 360. This means it takes 2.6 centimeters of real life mouse movement to perform a 360-degree rotation in-game. This is incredibly high, and even the best aimers on Earth would struggle terribly on settings like this. Most professional players play between 20 to 45 centimeters per 360 in Apex Legends. This allows for great control, while also having the ability to execute quick movements and aim in any direction needed. To find out what your sensitivity is in centimeters per 360, and what settings you would need to play within that range, we've linked to a calculator that can help out in the description. While it's not impossible to have great aim outside of that range, it's the tried and true safer bet for the majority of players. It's also worth mentioning that changing your mouse sensitivity isn't really a big deal. You won't lose your muscle memory or anything like that, and the value of finding a sensitivity that feels best for you outweighs any comfort you might develop by sticking to one suboptimal sensitivity forever. And there we have it. We hope you found these tips helpful for your games in Season 8, and we highly recommend you try out the brand new Apex Legends clicking and tracking playlists in KovaaKs. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.